WTGZ, Union Springs, Montgomery, and Auburn. And AM 620 WTRP, LaGrange.
You better buckle your seatbelts because it's going to be a show to watch.
From Tiger Communications.
Jackson, touchdown.
For 20 years, East Alabama's sports talk leader.
Swing and drive, Johnson right.
Sportscall.
Oh, what a dunk.
Call in now at 887-3401-MOKAMI.
Right through, he got it.
Or 1-888-9-TIGER-9, toll free.
Struck him out.
And now, coming to you live from the loveliest village on the plains. Sports Call. The opening segment of Sports Call is brought to you by Lee Marketing Group. For signage, tees, web design, and more, call LMG today at 334-742-0197.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of Sports Call on this stormy Wednesday afternoon. Whenever the temperature rises, there's always a chance of thunderstorms passing through. It appears that's what is happening right now in Central Alabama, but we'll soldier on. I am Andy Graham alongside Randy Lee. We'll be with you for the next 2 hours, taking your phone calls and discussing everything relevant in the world of sports, discussing anything you'd like to discuss, especially Auburn football as they prepare to take on Arkansas in a mere 10 days. Auburn will take on Arkansas there in Jordan-Hare Stadium on August 30th. They will be broadcast on the SEC Network. Everyone, of course, looking forward to that. Sports Call is brought to you today by Always Money. Always Money offers title loans, cash advance loans, Western Union services, and they buy your gold. Visit one of their many convenient locations or visit them on the web at alwaysmoney.com. Always Money. Easy, convenient, friendly, and fast. Whether you're listening on 93.9 The Tiger or tuning us in via the web at sportscallauburn.com, we appreciate you so much taking some time and tuning us in this afternoon. We also have a mobile app on our webpage at sportscallauburn.com. You can just go to Listen Live and go down to the mobile app download. If you got a cell phone, you can listen to Sports Call anywhere you are in the United States or even the world. So go ahead and take advantage of that great opportunity. Randy, a lot going on. We're going to welcome in Barrett Lee at 4:30 to talk a little bit about college football. We'll run down, continue our preview of Auburn's schedule. Today is the team that Auburn plays November the 1st. That would be the Ole Miss Rebels. We are working our way backwards down toward Arkansas on that August 29th, our last Friday show before the beginning of the season on that Saturday. So all looking forward to that. We are live on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill. Busy time happening right now. A lot going on here at the restaurant. First of all, let's just talk a little bit about Auburn. Got a lot of good news, some good news, some bad news as far as injuries are concerned. That was the talk last week at the end of practice. A lot of nagging injuries, but yesterday at practice we got some really good news. Ladarius Owens is back in the fold.
You know, I think he's going to be a big name this year for the Tigers. Coming there, a fifth-year senior, was one of the top recruits in the entire state of Alabama his senior year in high school out of the Birmingham area. And to have him back, Andy, and to have him coming off the edge, I thought he ended last season very strong. And to have him come back as a fifth-year senior is what we need. We've got a lot of youth, a lot of talent. We recruited well at that position, but that senior is going to be key. And I'm glad to get him back because we're a week out. I'm sure they're preparing, getting set for that opening football game, and it's not a cupcake game, no matter how you spin it. I've remember many times over the years, Arkansas, when we expected to really take it to them. Gus Malzahn was an assistant coach. One of the years I do remember that very, very well, as Auburn was a top 10 ranked team, and Gus Malzahn brought that offense in, and it was we weren't a top-ranked team after they left, and so hopefully we won't see that again this year. But a very tough matchup, and glad to have Ladarius Owens back.
Absolutely. Defensive end, obviously a position of need for Auburn right now, losing Carl Lawson for the season, or perhaps maybe he makes it back for part of the season, but certainly you can't count on him right here at the beginning. Ladarius Owens apparently over now the infection that was in his leg that they had to go in and put a rod in, a stress fracture in his leg. He missed spring practice, but apparently he is healthy. Maybe he's not quite 100%, but he is back practicing, and that is great news for Auburn and Auburn's defense. You're right. It's not game week, but Gus Malzahn apparently is in game week mode. Auburn is practicing today and tomorrow. They'll go through a walkthrough on Friday at the stadium, treating this like a game week. Getting prepared for the season. No doubt the game plan is being implemented as we speak. It's just everything is kind of working their way down. Everybody's getting a little more serious. The evaluation period is over. Now it's time to get down to business.
Well, the beauty of an opening game, especially one that's as tough as we have here for Arkansas and for Auburn, when you have an opening game, you prepare for that not only the week leading up, but you're in constant preparation for that game throughout the offseason. And Arkansas especially. With this offense and how many problems it caused for not only Arkansas but the entire SEC this past year. The reads that are hard to find. We'll talk a lot about that. I know Damian Craig mentioned that Gus Malzahn and watching what he does over the last year and the way that it's tough to find the football and 4 different options that you have on these reads. Arkansas has been working on this thing nonstop. Now, will it help? We'll see. It didn't help too many teams down the stretch last year, but I think that's the beauty of Gus Malzahn. I think that he is dynamic enough to change things up enough that if you have an entire offseason to get prepared for him, it doesn't help out all that much. That's what we're sitting here hoping as Auburn fans, aren't we, Andy?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, as good as the news is that Ladarius Owens is back, obviously with the loss of Jay Price last year, the fullback or H-back position was going to be a position of need or to fill this season. Brandon Fultz has done a great job with that. He appears to be the starter. But for the backup role, it started out a walk-on. Gage Batten looked like he was a smaller version of Jay Price, but much the same type of attitude. He gets hurt. He's out for the season. Another walk-on steps in his place, Patrick Young, a guy that has been at Auburn now he's listed as a junior, although I think he may have already he may be ahead of that as far as his schooling is concerned, but as far as his eligibility, he's a junior. He is lost now for the season with an injury, a tough blow for him because he's been kind of a scout team player the whole time, has really put in a lot of work for this Auburn team, is a guy that's well-liked, and now, he was looking maybe to get some playing time actually as a backup for the H-back position. Now he's out. So, a devastating, it's bad for him more than it is, I guess, for the Auburn team.
Well, it points to a lot of young talent for Auburn having a possibility of seeing the field a lot sooner than we thought they would. And Jaquel Mitchell may be one of those that will take advantage. 6'3", 218-pounder from right there in Opelika High School. Missed his entire senior season for Opelika. Can you imagine what that team would have been like with Jaquel Mitchell back as a senior for Opelika? But we'll skip away from that. I don't want to upset any Bulldog fans out there. But Auburn has really raved how he has come in and really impressed the coaching staff so far in the early going. So you'll see some new faces, and that's the beauty of going out there and recruiting top-notch talent like a Jaquel Mitchell. When you have a player go down, you hope that you can plug one in. Jay Price is going to be very, very hard to replace, especially with his blocking abilities. But a couple of these names that we're bringing up, like a Brandon Fultz and a Jaquel Mitchell, bring some different dynamics to this offense that we maybe didn't see last year, catching the football out of the backfield and some other things that we may see.
No doubt about it. Another guy that was not at practice yesterday, Jalen Denson. Quote-unquote, Gus Malzahn says he had some things to take care of. Don't know exactly what that means, but if Auburn is going to miss somebody, the receiver position is where you'd like for that to be because they're so deep. Auburn has kind of got receivers coming out of their ears at the moment. You don't know, Jalen Denson coming back off that injury that he suffered against LSU last year, tremendous blocking receiver. He had made a lot of strides as coming out of Hoover, a high-quality recruit. I don't know what his situation is going forward, but But it's always you always want as much depth as possible.
888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401 locally. Sports Call AU is where you can find us on Twitter. Our question of the day, we've rolled a few of those around. I'll throw out the one that we thought was a little bit funny, but it tells you the difference in these two programs. As we're going to talk about Ole Miss today, Andy and I said, name your best memory or the greatest moment or the greatest game that you've seen between Auburn and Ole Miss. And both of us said one thing. The only ones I really remember, unfortunately, are the ones that we lose because we don't lose that often to the Mississippi schools. And Ole Miss has had some good stretches. They've jumped up and beat us at times, but those are the ones that stick out to me, Andy.
Yeah, me too. You know, obviously, I think the one that jumps to my mind right at the beginning is the Eli Manning in 2003. Auburn, Ole Miss had a good team. They were probably one missed field goal against LSU from going to Atlanta, for the first time. So, Obamanu drops the touchdown pass in the end zone. That would have been a sure touchdown, would have been a victory for Auburn. That was pretty crushing leaving the stadium there in 2003. It was a rough season. It wasn't like it cost Auburn a chance to go to Atlanta or anything, but it was a sad time leaving the stadium that night.
Auburn's played Ole Miss 38 times in its history. Auburn leads the series 28-10, so we'll have that game on November the 1st. Going to be a great matchup. Ole Miss has recruited well. We'll talk about some of those players. 2 years recruiting class, 2 recruiting classes ago, had to be the best recruiting class in Ole Miss's history as they get the number 1 recruit in the country in Robert Kimdichie. Does he move down to a defensive tackle post, whereas he started at a defensive end post last year? His brothers
really be the running back.
Yeah, well, they've got the skill position players. They've got a returning quarterback in Bo Wallace. I waver on my thoughts on Bo Wallace. I'd like, as we're heading into our first break, get some of your thoughts on Bo Wallace, Andy.
Well, yeah, I think he's a decent quarterback. He's a decent SEC quarterback. You think as a senior maybe he cleans up some of the things that he has done wrong over the years. Maybe the light comes on for him a little more. Ole Miss was +1 in turnover margin, so they were actually one better than Auburn. Auburn was dead even. So it just seemed like every time Ole Miss turned the ball over, it was in a critical situation. It was at the worst time possible. So they have to do something different about that. And you look, and everybody says, most people say Hugh Freeze has done a great job at Ole Miss. And he has as far as recruiting is concerned. But, I mean, what's the difference between Kevin Sumlin coming in to Texas A&M? He won 11 games. Of course, he had Johnny Manziel. But, Hugh Freeze has gone 7-6 and 8-5. Has he done that great a job? I mean, they're pretty mediocre. This is basically what Houston Nutt did there. Things went downhill after the first couple of years. So, it'll be interesting to see this season. Even in his own words, Hugh Freeze said that Ole Miss was probably 2 years away from actually looking like an SEC team. I don't know as I disagree with him. Like you said, it's going to take several recruiting classes like the one he had 2 years ago to really transform this Ole Miss team to be a competitor and do something they have never done before, which is make to the SEC championship game.
The closest year that they had to making it, 2003, as you mentioned, 10-3. That was only a Cotton Bowl appearance, tied for first in the West. This team has not gotten over the edge. And over the last 6 or 8 years, how many times do you remember Ole Miss being ranked fairly high? I can remember 2 or 3 different times in the last 7 years that we thought that Ole Miss was going to get over the hump and have a potential of competing with an Auburn or an Alabama and some of the others, LSUs in the West. Just haven't been able to do it. I'm with you. When you look at the record, when you look at the SEC marks the last 2 years, both 3-5. They've been in some other ball games. They've been blown out in many of them also. So this is a telltale sign. When you've got a senior quarterback that's been there as long as Bo Wallace, your expectation levels as a fan base, I think, rise a little bit, especially after that first year. These guys have been there. They've got a year under their belt with that great recruiting class. Do they get over the hump? I personally don't believe so. The West's just too hard to get around.
And people talk about schedule. Ole Miss does not exactly have an easy schedule. They open up with Boise State. Now, this is not Chris Peterson's Boise State team any longer, but I don't think I would sleep on, Boise, the Broncos out there, so that's a difficult game to open up with. They have a stretch, Ole Miss does, where they don't have a bye for about, I believe it's 6 or 7 weeks. So we'll take a look at that, when we come back and dive a little bit more into this preview of Ole Miss when Auburn takes them on November the 1st. Auburn will have to travel to Oxford, so it should be an interesting matchup. I know Gus Malzahn and Hugh Freeze are very good friends. That's always an added incentive. I'm sure when you play your friends, you want to beat them. So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Ole Miss. We're going to go ahead and take our first break, but there's more Sports Call to come, presented by Always Money.
Alaska, Europe, Hawaii, and more on a land trip or cruise. Contact Ruta Lisa Anderson at Cruise Planners today. Why do the planning when it can be done for you? Visit exclusivecruiseplanners.com or call 844-722-6342.
I hear the drums echoing tonight.
Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Call on this stormy Wednesday afternoon. The Thunder rolls. I am Andy Graham. He is Randy Lee, and together we'll be with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls and talking about everything in the world of sports. You can give us a call at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. Talked a little bit about the Auburn update, really, from practice. The injuries seem to be getting better. Auburn seems to be moving forward in that area. The interesting story, everybody keeps talking about Auburn, everybody else catching up to the Auburn offense, to the Gus Malzahn offense, and that being one of the reasons that everybody says, well, let's put Oklahoma, let's put Oregon, let's put Alabama ahead of Auburn. We think that Auburn's schedule is too tough, but we also think that the defenses are going to have a better idea how to stop Auburn. The Auburn coaching staff, especially Damian Craig, says he thinks that's pretty funny. He looks at it and he says, how can they catch up to something that's in Gus Malzahn's mind? And it's so adaptable. You see that how it changes from school to school. It changed from Tulsa to Arkansas State to Auburn. I think that's one of the beautiful things about Gus Malzahn and his offense. He adapts it to his players, and, it evolves every year. It's not the same thing. So, for everybody else, that's probably bad news.
Well, I think it's good news for Auburn this year if it is adaptable, and it was last year, and Nick Marshall did what he did. Imagine what he can do in year two, because this offense only seemed to get stronger as the year went on last year. I guess I just easily forgot how tough some of those first few games were for Auburn last year, and because about midway through the season, say Tennessee game is the one that jumps out to me. Boy, things got easy. Kickoff returns were happening. Corey Grant's taking it to the house on
throw
kickoff.
The ball 7 times.
We're not having to throw the ball ever. We're running the ball directly at them. Nobody can stop us. Things got easy quickly. But the first few games, including that Washington State game, was a very tough one. So I'm looking forward to year two with Nick Marshall. I thought a great story that I read yesterday with Jeremy Johnson saying that he felt like Nick Marshall was going to win the Heisman Trophy this year, and to see that two guys that are in competition, no matter what, if you're the backup quarterback, you want to be playing. And Jeremy Johnson's a competitor. He wants to be playing. But I think it speaks volumes how much this team thinks of one another for Jeremy Johnson to say that about Nick Marshall, who's getting the reps that he'd like to be getting.
Yeah, their relationship, Johnson and Marshall, is pretty special. I think they're roommates. You can tell how much they like each other, what good of friends they are. And they cheer for one another. You look at this, and I think everybody on the planet knows that Jeremy Johnson is going to get the start against Arkansas. And I think Nick Marshall is happy for him. And like you said, Nick, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? I heard people debating this today. Jeremy Johnson comes out and says that Nick Marshall will definitely, he knows for a fact, Nick Marshall is going to win the Heisman Trophy. And some people say, well, he's just putting undue pressure on Nick Marshall. I think the pressure's already there. I don't think anything that Jeremy Johnson says is going to make a hill of beans difference. I think that everybody already looks at Nick Marshall and either overrates him or underrates him. And I've seen both people and both sides of it today.
Well, when you look at the stat line, you look at how dynamic he was to close out the season. To me, you look at the way that he handles himself on the field, his composure under pressure. Mississippi State game is the first one that pops to your mind. The way he took that team right down the field, throwing the football, and you couldn't have put it in a more perfect situation, right corner of the end zone to win the game. That propelled this Auburn team to an opportunity to play for a national title. That is what we're all excited about out there. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Let's go to the phone line. Shadow and Prattville, you're on Sports Call.
Yeah, thank y'all for taking my call. I wanted to make that same observation. about Marshall. I certainly hope he does win the Heisman Trophy, but I also wanted to get y'all's opinion of this. I don't know if you saw it last night, but it was Stinchcomb, who used to be the former lineman from Georgia. I believe it was on the SEC Network, was asked to give the top 5 offensive lines in the SEC, and he didn't list Auburn in the top 5. I wanted to get your initial impression of that, and then I want to make a comment.
Well, my initial impression is I think he's way off. I think with Reese Dismuke's back in the middle, the talent of Sean Coleman, and the remainder of the offensive line that returns there for Auburn, I wouldn't swap it. Let's put it that way. Many years you kind of look and you say, I sure would like to have Alabama's offensive line or LSU's offensive line. I'm not sure who I'd swap this year. I'll take the one that we've got, Shadow.
Well, the thing that it made me think of, and I think we would all agree that there are media darlings out there. Well, and if we do agree that there are media darlings out there, I think there's also a culture where they want to downplay everything that certain teams do, and I think that Auburn may be one of those. It is like what Auburn did last year was not recognized, just like what they did in '83 was not recognized, and so many things over the years. It's almost like, well, Auburn, they can't repeat. I mean, what they did last year to Alabama, that was pure luck. That was not an absolutely outstanding coaching move by Malzahn. It was just the luck of the draw. It had nothing to do with the fact that Nick Saban made one of the most stupidest calls in history by putting the pressure on a young man to come out there and kick a 60-yard field goal. Now, that didn't have nothing to do with it. And my question, my statement was, it seems, it is that when will Auburn be recognized as one of the top teams in the country? Are we going to have to come out and do it again, which I believe we will do? And I just wanted y'all to comment. I'm going to hang up and listen on if you think that will change the tenor of the conversation when it comes to Auburn as to whether that they are legitimate or whether they're just lucky. Thank you.
Shadow, we appreciate the phone call. 888-9-TIGER-9 is our phone number if you'd like to call us in. Back to Shadow's point, I think it's valid somewhat in the national media to point to Auburn and want to see a repeat of what you saw last year. I mean, Andy, even sitting here as one of the biggest Auburn fans that out there, I want to see Auburn have consecutive seasons where we have 10 wins. Been since the late 80s since we pulled that off. And, when the national prognosticators put an Alabama team that lost to us at the end of the season at home and then got drawn by Oklahoma in the bowl game, and they put them ahead of us, I think it points directly to, I got to see Auburn do this more than one time. And look, it doesn't make it right or wrong. It really doesn't matter. I mean, this is just us sitting up here talking before the games start. But, as an Auburn fan, I would love to see us repeat what we did. If we don't make it to a national title game, at least be right there in the running.
Well, let me say two things here. Number one, I think it's great the way ESPN is talking about Auburn because it's one of the most interesting things you've ever seen in that a team is ranked 5th and 6th in the polls. They're a top 10 team, and yet on the same hand, they're saying that they're not good enough to win it. So Auburn's getting the best of both worlds right now. They're getting some respect in that they are a top 5, top 6 team in the country, and yet people are also saying they're not as good as Alabama. They can't do this 2 years in a row. I heard a guy on ESPN say Auburn was going to go 8-4. So I think that's great that Auburn is being underrated. Their offensive line is being underrated. All these things work in Auburn's favor. Number two, it may not be right. It may be kind of asinine the way that the process works as far as will Auburn get their respect, but that's the way it is. That's why I've said I think this season is one of the most important in Auburn history. For them to do what they did last year, to win at least 10 games again this year, to prove that they can do it, to prove that this is a new day, like Gus Malzahn said last year, and that Auburn is going to be around and they're going to be a top 5 team for the foreseeable future. So I think this is just an important season for Auburn.
Going to go a couple of minutes over here because I want to get back to the phone lines quickly. Anthony in Auburn, you're on Sports Call.
Hey guys, how's it going? I'll try to keep it quick. Yeah, I kind of wanted, and I missed a little bit of what you were just saying, so if I do repeat, sorry about that. But as far as ESPN and their love affair for Auburn right now, which is completely, in my opinion, something new that I'm experiencing with them, do y'all feel like, I think it's our positive spin with ESPN right now is one, because of what we did last year. We have a likable coach, and I feel like us having Bruce Pearl on Auburn staff is really helping, because if you think about it and go back to Chiswick and Tuberville, they just seem like they didn't like them as coaches, period. I mean, do y'all have an opinion on that?
My opinion is Bruce Pearl is good for this Auburn program in so many different ways. I don't even know how to measure them. If you watched the SEC Network, which, by the way, I don't think I've turned it off of my channel. I'll just be honest with you. I've kept it there. Anytime that I go home and watching anything, it's on the SEC Network. Did you see the piece on Bruce Pearl last night in Auburn's basketball program? Oh, boy. I'm telling you.
I did.
Was it not? It was outstanding, wasn't it, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, it had me fired up. My wife was about to kill me because I wouldn't. I was telling her to hold on with my 1-year-old boy, saying, "Oh, I got to watch this." I mean, I am more amped up about basketball season. Of course, I'm very amped up about football season. But Bruce Pearl, I agree with you, Randy, is doing more than just for the basketball program, and he is putting us on the map as far as just a brand in itself. And I really feel like it's going to help sell everything down the line. But guys, you do a great job. Keep it up. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for the phone call, Anthony, and we'll talk a lot more about that, Andy, later on in the program. But I was wanting to bring that piece up last night and get the reaction from the Auburn fan base out there. I know that we're excited about basketball, but the more that I see the product and the more that I see the work ethic that Bruce Pearl has and just his personality, the more that I'm looking forward to basketball season. It's been a long time since I've said that.
Well, I think you speak for a lot of Auburn fans who feel exactly the same way. We're going to push our Ole Miss preview back a few segments. We're going to welcome in Barrett Salee hopefully next segment, so we'll catch up with him, get his thoughts on everything going on in college football right now. Up against a break, but don't go anywhere. More Sports Call to come, presented by Always Money, right after this.
primary health care needs, visit Family Health Clinic at 1456 Opelika Road in Auburn. 334-826-8951. Open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Little Cheaper says it's the
Barrett
summer sale
Salee.
you've been waiting for. It's the summer clearance event at Carl Gregory Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Columbus. New Ram truck, Chargers, Arcs, Journeys, 200s, Grand Caravans, Wranglers, Cherokees, Grand Cherokee, and many more have been drastically discounted for this annual event. Get new 2014 Ram 1500 starting at just $21,488, or a new 2014 Dodge Avenger for only $14,990. Even get a new 2014 Jeep Wrangler for just $24,995. Carl Gregory Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Columbus even has the all-new 2015 Chrysler 200 in stock. 0% financing available. 0 payments for 90 days. Want more? Bring us your trade, and Carl Gregory will try to pay you top dollar for it. You might even be able to get more than you ever thought possible for your trade. Don't miss the annual summer clearance event going on now at your locally owned dealer. Carl Gregory Chrysler Dodge Jeep Rams, 2 giant locations. Victory Drive and the North Lake Auto Complex. Prices after all applicable rebates. All prices exclude tax, tag, title, and limit law fees. Interest, if any, accrues from date of purchase on approved credit. Not available on internet pricing.
Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Call on this Wednesday afternoon. Andy Graham here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free, or locally at 334-887-3401. Sports Call is brought to you by Auburn Urgent Care. Auburn Urgent Care offers convenient solutions for your health care and occupational medicine needs, including workman's compensation injury care and certified DOT medical examinations. With locations on South College and in Tigertown, visit them online at auburnurgentcare.com. We'll pick up your phone calls in the next segment, but right now we're going to welcome in a good friend of the program, Barrett Salee, lead writer for the Auburn Tigers at the Bleacher Report. Hey, Barrett, how's it going today?
Good, guys. What's going on?
Doing really well. Let's just talk a little bit about some national things going on. Obviously, Braxton Miller goes down for the season, kind of a devastating injury for Ohio State. A lot of people look at their schedule and say that they still have an opportunity to make the college football playoff because the weakness of the Big Ten, and they think that, Ohio State can really pick up the pieces. What do you say?
Well, I didn't really have them in the college football playoff to begin with. I thought Michigan State would win the Big Ten, but I didn't even have Michigan State making the playoff. I think the Big Ten would be on the outside looking in just because I think the power from around the nation and, in different areas, I think will trump what the Big Ten has to offer, especially now that Ohio State isn't as daunting of a task on everybody else's schedule. UCLA is a one-loss team that's going to win the Pac-12 and get in. I think Florida State's going to be either undefeated or have a loss but still win the ACC and get in, and then you're going to have Oklahoma from the Big 12 undefeated as well. So I didn't have Ohio State, winning the Big Ten anyway, and don't have Michigan State getting in to the college football playoff just because I don't think there'll be enough spots. Because I think for everywhere else around the country, teams from tougher conferences will have better resumes and be better on paper and on the field. So, it definitely shakes things up a little bit. I think the biggest thing it does is sort of remove one contender from, a potential SEC team or a Pac-12 team getting that second team in the playoff because you won't have to deal with Ohio State being one of 2 powers in the Big Ten along with Michigan State.
Well, Barry, let me ask you a question. Do you have now or have you ever had a vote in the AP poll?
I do not have a vote in the AP poll now, and I never have. Okay.
Well, I was just wondering, I always am curious when they come out with preseason poll like this, what the criteria is. Is it supposed to be, these are the best teams in order, top 1 through 25, that we see coming into the season, or is this who we think is going, what it's going to be like at the end of the season? Because the talk about Auburn, being ranked 6th as opposed to maybe even 3rd ahead of, say, an Ohio State or an Oklahoma or an Oregon, is that their schedule is so tough that we don't believe that they're going to be there at the end. And I just wondered, as curious, maybe you might know, you might be able to enlighten me. Is that, is the initial preseason poll that comes out who they think that's how it's going to end up, or are these the best teams that they believe coming into the season?
Well, there is no specific criteria, and I think it's up to the voter. And I vote in our poll, and I always vote just based on where I think they are right now, not where I think they're going to end up. That way, you have more flexibility, you have more room to sort of move teams up and down based on how they play and how they look each week. So I always vote that way. I know other people do the complete opposite. I know Tim Brando always releases his poll based on how he thinks they'll finish. I know Phil Steele, everything he does in his magazine is based on how they think, he thinks teams will finish. That's why one year he had Duron Carter as an all-SEC wide receiver, and he never played it down. So, I think that's, it sort of depends on the beholder, especially in these polls. You don't have a set criteria, but every time I, pick all SEC teams or ranked teams, I always do it based on where I think they are right now, and then adjust accordingly as the season goes on.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Alabama. They are in the midst of a quarterback battle there in Tuscaloosa. Jacob Coker and Blake Sims. You hear different things coming out of practice. Supposedly, Jacob Coker did not look very well at all in the scrimmage that they had over the weekend. Is a lot of people, obviously, Alabama is ranked number 2 in the AP poll. A lot of people think that it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is. All they have to do is hand it off. I'm not sure that's quite true. How do you fall on this issue?
Well, I don't think it matters in the sense that I don't think it's as pressing of an issue as, say, a quarterback battle in Baton Rouge right now, because there are so many pieces at Alabama for whoever wins that job to rely on. Whoever wins that job, he doesn't have to make mistakes. That's the biggest thing, is don't make mistakes. And, if these quarterbacks, both Blake Sims and Jacob Coker, are both up and down, then I think that's really, troubling and concerning, because, Blake Sims is a guy who, has had, 4 years to get it. Jacob Coker came in with all this hype, although I think a lot of it was artificial. I think, Alabama, I think, is going to be okay if their quarterback is just a caretaker or a game manager. If Jacob Coker lives up to this hype and is a superstar, then great, so be it. Or if Blake Sims is a superstar, then great, so be it. But they can get by and be a successful football team and win, championships with a caretaker at quarterback. I think the struggle right now is finding a caretaker, and that's a huge problem, because the last thing Alabama needs is a quarterback making mistakes. Because you look back at, say what you will about A.J. McCarron. I thought he was a pretty good quarterback, but he was an excellent game manager. Whether that's a bad label or not, he was an excellent game manager, and that's an important trait. And it seems like they haven't found one to sort of pick up that slack, and that's troubling for sure.
Well, the Auburn Tigers they have a quarterback issue of their own. Obviously, Nick Marshall announced will not be the starter in Game 1. There has not been a starter named, but I think pretty much we can all guess that it will be Jeremy Johnson. He highly touted coming out of Carver High School here in Alabama. He has all the physical tools. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Do you think the reluctance to go ahead and name him has anything to do with maybe his performance in the fall camp, or do you think maybe Gus Malzahn is just playing head games with Brett Bielema?
I mean, I think it's just Gus Malzahn just not – I don't think he's playing head games. I think he's just – I don't think he wants Jeremy Johnson to be complacent. I think he wants him to continue to work. So I think if he's playing head games with anybody, I think it's with Jeremy Johnson to make sure that he gets his mind right and prepares like the starter or prepare like he's battling for a job right now, and then he can go into game week next week and prepare as the starting quarterback like he did last year when he filled in for Dick Marshall. So I think the reluctance is the fact that he still wants to finish off the quote-unquote camp portion of August, with Jeremy Johnson still, having, a fire underneath him, and then go into next week, let them know the plan and then execute that plan accordingly. Both of those players are going to, operate as if they are starting quarterbacks, because Nick Marshall, I don't think he's going to be out for too long. But Jeremy Johnson, assuming he's the guy, and I think everyone assumes he will be, it's a great opportunity for him to prepare for a big game as a starting quarterback. He didn't get to do that last year. He prepared to be the starter, but it wasn't a huge game. Now he gets to prepare for a pretty big game against an SEC team, and that's experience that he can use down the road.
We've got Barrett Salee here with the lead writer for Auburn at the Bleacher Report. One final question for you. Auburn is preparing now to put the game plan in to take on Arkansas on August 30th at Jordan-Hare Stadium, 3 p.m. On the SEC Network. What do you think is the biggest concern that this Arkansas team presents for Auburn in Game 1?
Well, I think their running game is pretty stout. I mean, last year Alex Collins over 1,000 yards as a freshman, Jonathan Williams with 900, sort of in 1B duties in an offense that was woefully one-dimensional. That's that they can run the football, and Auburn I think has to focus on stopping the run. And if they can do that, then force Brandon Allen to beat them, then that's what they have to do. Arkansas, Brett Bielema in particular, they pound rock, and it's going to be a tough test for Auburn and its defensive line and its linebackers to sort of pick up where they left off. I mean, that national championship game last year, the story was the front seven or front six, I guess, in Auburn's case, because the defensive line played well, the linebackers were fantastic. And that's something that they can build off of, but all of that can be eradicated if they struggle with stopping the run against Arkansas. I don't think they will, but they certainly have that. That's the biggest challenge. Arkansas, I don't think presents a challenge anywhere else because, that's still a woefully undermanned roster.
Barrett Salee, lead writer for Auburn at the Bleacher Report. Anything you want to plug at the Bleacher Report right now?
Well, SEC West predictions are coming out actually momentarily, and then SEC East tomorrow, and then preview videos to get us through the summer are getting posted later in the week. And then next week, starting Monday, we'll have preview videos for each of the week one games, which we're recording tomorrow. So that should be a lot of fun. Absolutely. Barrett Salee, we can't thank you enough for joining us here on Sports Call this afternoon. We really appreciate it. All right, guys. Thanks for having me. Thank you very much. Sports Call will return right after this, presented by Auburn Urgent Care.
Stop by your local TK's convenience store where Resource Natural Spring Water
This segment of Sports Call is brought to you by Resource Natural Spring Water. Resource is 100% natural spring water with naturally occurring electrolytes that support a lifestyle of well-being. When you need to refresh, revitalize, and replenish, it's always Resource Natural Spring Water.
Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Sports Call. Andy and Randy here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. You can check us out on Facebook, or you can send us a tweet at Sportscall AU. Sports Call presented by Auburn Urgent Care. As promised, we'll go ahead and move in, talk a little bit about Ole Miss. That is our question of the day. What's your most memorable Auburn-Ole Miss game? There's a lot of them out there to choose from, but we seem to decide that the ones that we remember the most are the ones that we lost. I certainly remember the Auburn-Ole Miss game where Ben Leard was injured. He was not able to play. Jeff Klein came in at the I don't know if he came in the middle of that game, if he got hurt that game or did not play at all. I believe Ben got hurt in that game. It went to overtime. Jeff Klein was not able to get it done for Auburn in overtime. We lost that game. That was in Tuberville's second year, maybe 2000, I believe. It was a tough game to lose. But every time you lose to Ole Miss, you always felt like you always should have won that game.
Well, 38 games, winning 28 of them, that's a pretty good mark, especially against an SEC caliber team. But you can really weigh your season. My father's always said this. You can weigh your season at Auburn or Alabama on whether you beat the Mississippi schools. And if you start off by losing to the Mississippi schools,
not very good.
Watch out. It could get bad. And the years that I can think of over the last 10 that we have struggled, and we've had a couple of them mixed in there where they were as bad as I can remember, and they did start off with losses to Mississippi State or an Ole Miss team there at the beginning of the season and just continue to dwindle down. By the way, I enjoyed Barrett Salee. I've enjoyed the guests that we continue to get on out there. These guys have got great knowledge, and hopefully throughout the remainder of this program, throughout the football season, Jason Caldwell will be a continued guest, an every week guest on Tuesday at 4:30. We're hoping to tie that down, and he does an outstanding job. Brian Matthews always willing to come on. Barrett Salee, Keith Niebuhr, another guest out there. Andy, we're hoping to continue to get those guests to the Auburn fans.
Absolutely. They bring a lot of knowledge and a lot of insight to the program. This Ole Miss team returns 16 starters, 6 on offense, 9 on defense. This is a defense last year that gave up 23, almost 24 points a game, which is 37th in the country. Not too bad. They gave up 370 yards a game. That's 38th in the country. You look at that overall, you think, that's a pretty middle of the road, pretty decent defense there. The offense, on the other hand, racked up 473 yards a game, which was 21st in the country, and put 30 points on the board. You look at those numbers and you think Ole Miss probably should have a better record than 8-5, putting up numbers as scoring 30 points a game. But like I said, they bring back 9 players on defense, a defense that had a lot of talent. You talk about the Kendichi boys. You talk about on the offensive side, Laquan Treadwell, who got a lot of talk at SEC Media Days about being one of the best receivers in the conference. Tony Connor was a huge recruit. Last year, 2 years ago, and playing safety, got all the talent in the world. Laramie Tunsil, a tremendous offensive lineman, back at Ole Miss this year. But I think it all comes down to Bo Wallace. He's going to be the difference, and to be whether Ole Miss wins 10 games or if they win 7 games or 8 games like they've been doing. And do they continue to be mediocre, or do they take the next step?
Is Laquan Treadwell a top 2 or top 3 receiver in the conference? They're going to need that to happen. They need a Sammy Coates. They need an Amari Cooper on that squad, and Laquan Treadwell is the one that you point to. And one of the main reasons Dante Moncrief is gone from Prattville High School, outstanding player, 6'3", 226 pounds. In his senior campaign, he was as good as anybody we saw last year, I thought. And Dante Moncrief being gone from that team even puts more pressure on Laquan Treadwell. So they need that. Bo Wallace, the backs that they've had and the backs that they've had to return scat back types. And when you only return those scat back types, you don't have a lot. And their leading rusher, Mathers, 95 attempts for 563 yards, almost 6 yards per carry average, 3 touchdowns. They lose a lot of production there, and they'll need to find somebody to replace.
Absolutely. Running the football is a staple in the SEC. I don't care who you are. You have to be able to run the football effectively, and that kind of makes your offense go. Hugh Freeze runs basically the same kind of offense as Gus Malzahn. His is a little bit more pass-oriented, much like Kevin Sumlin, but they like to run the hurry up. They like to, control the pace. You look, at their schedule, like I said, they open up with Boise State. Then they play Vanderbilt. Last year that was a tremendous game. Ole Miss ended up pulling it out really late, 39-35. But you look at Ole Miss, they open up with Boise, then they play Vandy. They've got like I said, they've got a string where they play about 7 games in a row and some pretty tough games in the SEC. Like I said, welcoming in Alabama, welcoming in Auburn. So they've got their work cut out for them.
Love to hear from you in the second hour of the program. Got an hour left. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Sports Call AU is where you can find us on Twitter. Go out there, find us. We'll give away a T-shirt and a decal in the second hour of the program. Interaction there on our social media outlets.
Sports Call presented by Auburn Urgent Care. We'll be back right after this. We've got a minute.
You better buckle your seatbelts because it's going to be a show to watch.
From Tiger Communications.
Jackson, touchdown.
For 20 years, East Alabama's sports talk leader.
Swing and drive, Belton right.
Sportscall.
Oh, what a dunk.
Call in now at 887-3401 locally.
Right through, he got it.
Or 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free.
Struck him out.
And now, coming to you live from the loveliest village on the plains, Sports Call. This segment of Sports Call is brought to you by Reinhardt Prattville, located on Cobb's Ford Road, 334-290-1992. Visit us online at ReinhardtPrattville.com. Reinhardt Prattville, we sell to sell again.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sports Call on this Wednesday afternoon. Andy Graham and Randy Lee here with you for one more hour, taking your phone calls and discussing anything you'd like to talk about in the world of sports. Be sure to give us a call at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. Talked a lot about the Auburn Tigers in our first segment, previewed Ole Miss a little bit, the team that Auburn will take on November the 1st. Counting down the days here, 10 to go until Auburn takes on Arkansas at Jordan-Hare Stadium on the SEC Network at 3 p.m. Caught up with Barrett Salee, got his thoughts on several stories happening right now in the NCAA. One story, maybe to start off the second hour of the show here, Johnny Manziel not named the starter of the Cleveland Browns. I say we just stop doing the radio show, stop doing everything. Why do we want to live anymore if Johnny's not going to be the starter of the Browns?
Can you believe how much talk and how much blotter has gone on out there on Johnny Manziel? And he deserved it in college, but so many people speculated this. 6 of 17 in his final preseason game, and maybe he does need a little time over there on the bench. And his personality, his actions on the field make it very hard to cheer for him. I think that it's 50-50, though. I say that, and then he has a ton of fans because of his brashness and the way that he handles himself. And I think the younger crowd especially appreciates that, or at least that's the feeling I get when I hear from him. But, Andy, I mean, I'm not surprised that they make this decision. Brian Hoyer, is he much better? I doubt it. Cleveland has been fairly poor, and if they feel like they're going to lose or only win 4 or 5 games with Hoyer in there, I think that's been the big question. Do you go ahead and you put a Johnny Manziel in if you're only going to win 4 or 5 games anyway and go ahead and take your lumps?
Well, one of the biggest speculations, and it is a legitimate debate right now, is he not the starter because of his play on the field, which hasn't been great in preseason, but neither has Hoyer's. Or is it because of the finger? Is it because of him partying too much in the beginning of training camp? So is it his play on the field or is it his immaturity is the reason that he's not starting? What do you think? How do you fall on that issue?
I think it's his immaturity. I think that if he were to have come into camp and said at the beginning of the season, all I'm going to do is just immerse myself in the playbook and get myself set up, and I'm going to be potentially ready, I think that they would have made a different decision. That's my honest opinion, because Hoyer hadn't played any better. And if all things are equal and you've got a rookie quarterback that's going to turn the dial, fans are going to come out. His jersey sales aren't number one in the NFL for no reason. I mean, people like this guy. Tim Tebow was much the same way in a much different respect, but his jersey sale also number one in the NFL for quite a while. He's got to prove that he can play. He's got to prove that he can throw the football around. That's where the question marks lie. It's not in his athleticism, but athleticism seems to be diminished when you make it into the NFL, and the speed of the defensive line catches up to the speed of the quarterbacks in many different cases. I don't know. I personally don't mind Johnny Manziel. I think that he's good. It's entertainment anyway. I don't buy too much into wanting my players to be perfect on and off the field. Look, they live their own lives. I just like to watch them out there on Saturdays. I did, unless they was playing us. But on Sundays, I think much of the NFL would love to see him out there, Andy. I can say that.
Well, I can say this assuredly without any reservation whatsoever. Let him start for the Browns. Let him ride the bench for the Browns. That's fine as long as he is with the Browns. I don't want to see him again. I don't ever want to see him on Auburn's field again at Jordan-Hare. That was the nightmare of all nightmares when they came into Auburn in 2012. Auburn goes to Texas A&M in College Station last year, and it's just even when we were ahead and they were driving, I knew that he was going to take them right down the field. I don't ever want to see him again in a college uniform. I'm glad. Let him party, let him not party. Who cares? Just as long as he's not playing for A&M.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Terry in Montgomery, you're on Sports Call.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Terry, for calling.
Are you there? Yes, sir. Mr. Manziel, I am sure glad that he is not on a college football field anymore. But I have to be realistic. I mean, A.J. McCarron, Tim Tebow, Manziel, I hope has a lot of insurance, because when you get with the big boys that's been there a while and you come in as cocky as he is and no bigger than he is, I will estimate his total career of no more than 3 years. That is, if he plays this year. Or if he don't play this year. If he plays this year, I would say 2 years. And he's got too big of a mouth. His reputation precedes him of being a smart aleck. And them big old guys up there, you got to remember now, when you in college on each team, you may have 2 or 3 that weigh 300 pounds, and they're still trying to get to the pros. When you're in the pros, most of them have been there a while, and they know how to hurt you. That's just my opinion. Thank you. Thank you for taking the call. Thank you.
Terry, thanks so much for your phone call. I haven't thought about it that way, but I think he makes a very good point. What defensive player in the NFL doesn't want to do to Johnny Manziel what Washington did to him the other night? And what that is get him off his game and bring him off his high horse, Andy. And you're right. Whenever you have a guy that's continuing to blab at you and he's playing a position like a quarterback, Andy is undersized. He's about my size. This guy's 5'11 3/4 and 200 pounds. He's not an overly big guy. He's an absolutely outstanding athlete to be able to pull off what he has at the size that he is. Drew Brees has got the best pinpoint accuracy in the NFL. That's the reason he's been able to pull it off. Johnny Manziel's pulled this off because he's the best athlete on the field any time that he went out there on Saturday. So Terry makes a good point. I wouldn't be surprised if those NFL players don't kind of put a bounty on him.
Well, you look, in college, nobody could catch him. And you look the one time that he did get caught by Ladarius Owens, he got hurt. He knocked him out of the game and nearly about broke his shoulder. So you look at RG3, nobody could catch him in college. They caught him in the pros. It didn't last long. He still can't get it through his head to go ahead and slide and not take the punishment. So I think Johnny Manziel, when he does play, he's going to get caught and he's going to get punished. He is small. Terry may be right. 3 years might be a good bet on his tenure in the NFL.
Andy, I'm going to have to go ahead. We're going to go back to the phone lines, but we must bring up this Rashaan Evans story because it's really the only thing that's going on our social media outlets. So we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the $800 shoes. I hate to continue to bash him. We had a pretty good time with that on signing day, but look, when you put yourself out there like he and his father did yesterday, I guess we got to bring it up. Let's go back to the phone lines. Russell in Auburn, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys, War Eagle.
War Eagle to you.
Hey, man, did y'all catch Hard Knocks last night?
I didn't catch it. I've been meaning to move. I said this earlier, Russell. I'm turning it to the SEC Network and keeping it there. I can't seem to turn off of it. SEC Now's got me enthralled, so I haven't been able to get over there. Can you fill us in on what you saw?
Yeah, Hard Knocks was really good last night. Of course, it showed Sam Baker getting hurt, and that's very unfortunate for the Falcons. But Jadeveon Clowney is going to be probably Rookie of the Year. No doubt, hands down. He made a hit on one of the Falcons running backs, Devontae Freeman or whoever, that reminded me of the Michigan hit. It was and just smoking Sam Baker even before he got hurt. But, J.J. Watt didn't even play in that preseason game. And I wish everybody would stop talking about Johnny Manziel and start talking about somebody that's actually going to play and be up for Rookie of the Year, and it's probably more than likely going to be Clowney. Appreciate you guys.
Russell, thanks so much for the phone call. I'm going to tune that in, try to check it out. I am a Falcons fan if I'm a fan of anyone in the NFL. But Jadeveon Clowney, with the rest of that defensive front that he's got to work with, you can't double team him. I mean, you're not double teaming Clowney, are you?
And, not with Watt on the other side.
That's my point. So he may get the opportunities to make these plays that we thought he would at South Carolina.
Absolutely. I mean, you put him on one side and Watt on the other, and you have got one of the best dynamic duos in all of the NFL. And if he just, he's got the physical tools. That's never been his problem. Will he play every down? That's the question. You saw he lacked motivation his senior year or his junior year at South Carolina, and it didn't work out that well. But he's got certainly the biggest upside of anybody in the NFL draft here this last year. We're going to go ahead and take our first break of our second hour here on Sports Call. There's more to come, presented by Always Money.
is brought to you by Carl Gregory, Auburn, Opelika, and Columbus. Looking for a new Jeep, Ram, Dodge, or Chrysler model or a certified pre-owned vehicle? You're in luck. Visit your locally owned dealer for great prices on every make and model. Carl Gregory, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. 2 giant locations, Victory Drive or the North Lake Auto Complex in Columbus.
Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Call on this Wednesday afternoon. Andy and Randy taking you up to 6 o'clock. Taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. Randy, I'd be afraid to wear an $800 pair of shoes. I don't know if my feet can handle it. But your phone calls come first. Who's up next?
Let's go back to the phone lines. Todd in Tallahassee, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
Good to hear from you, Todd.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I don't own an $800 pair of shoes. I've been working since I graduated high school a long time ago, and I've had a real job for a long time. And it's just funny how the $800 pair of shoes, wow, must be nice.
You know, I think the biggest
pays to sign with Alabama.
Todd, the biggest storyline here is that Rashaan Evans, who we're talking about, of course, a great Auburn high school player. The problem is you attract attention to something that you know. I would know going in that if I put a picture up of a $5,000 suit and an $800 pair of shoes, and I say something to the effect that Coach Saban takes care of his kids, that I'm going to get some unneeded attention to my kid that don't need it right now. And I think that that's the part of this story that has everybody scratching their head.
I hope that it's been turned over to the NCAA, as it should be. Well, I mean, why wouldn't it be?
I don't know if it would matter.
if you listen,
hey, I'm sure T-Town Tom's got it taken care of. It's all good.
Well, Todd, we appreciate your phone call today, buddy. War Eagle to you out there. Love to hear from you again. And that's Todd over in Tallahassee, 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Alan Evans went to Facebook, put a picture of his son, Rashaan, with an $800 pair of shoes. Now, I don't know if that happens at Auburn. I don't know if it happens at other programs, but I do know it happened here. And if it's Alabama that you're talking about, I saw a recent poll. They are the most hated program in the country. They are the New York Yankees of college football. An Alabama fan will promptly call in, I'm sure, now and say that the reason is because we win so much. But nonetheless,
Do you take that as a compliment?
We all
that you're the most hated?
I guess. I mean, I wouldn't, but Alabama fans, all Alabama fans I know would. Wouldn't they to you? I mean, that's kind of the mentality that they have. I hate to sit up here and say it. That's my thought, so.
I think you're 100% right. Look, I thought about that. I hate the Yankees. I always have. I'm a big Braves fan, and the Yankees relish that. I think they always have this thing. Well, we're better than everybody else, and pretty much every Alabama. There are exceptions. I mean, there's one or two out there that obviously don't feel that way, but the majority that you run into seem to have an arrogance about them, and I would think that they'd be I think they'd be right up their alley, and I think they would feel like, yes, we are the most hated, and the reason is because everybody's jealous.
Well, we'd love to hear from y'all. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. If you've got thoughts on that subject, we'll talk to you about it. We got a couple of more phone calls holding on the line now. Terry in Montgomery, you're on Sports Call.
Thank you again for taking my call.
Glad to have you, Terry.
$800 pair. $800 pair of shoes. I mean, I don't have anything in my closet. Of course, I wear boots that's less than $1,600. Of course, I work for a living, or had worked for a living. I'm retired. But my thing is, I want somebody to please answer me this question. I don't care if it's from Alabama, if it's from Auburn, if it's from Ohio State, or where it's from. These young men that give these statements says their children have turned their lives around. Who is supporting these children?
That is a very good question.
It can't be the player. I mean, they're tied up in school, and they're practicing and playing football. They can't have a part-time, more or less a full-time job. Excuse my language, who in the hell is taking care of this wife and child?
I don't know. That's good. I mean, that's a good question to ask. I'll be honest with you. I gave up on all this. I find this amusing now, but I gave up on all this with the Fluker. When they had receipts and bills of purchase for furniture and things, and it didn't even cause a blip on the radar. I said, well, it's back to the Wild Wild West, and anything goes. So I just find this amusing.
But you read in the paper all the time, or you hear, on the news or whatever, is this kid turned his life around when his child was born. Now, look, the wife, the child, and housing is not free. Now, who in the heck's paying for it?
It's a good point you bring up, Terry. Hey, we appreciate your phone call. Love to hear from you again, okay?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Let's go back to the phone line. Scott in Ellick City, you're on Sports Call.
Shout out to my man, Terry. That was an excellent phone call. That was enjoyable right there. But staying along the lines of the conversation that you were having before he called in and kind of piggybacking off what he said, I think that even if it's Auburn or any other team, but Auburn in particular that has to deal with Alabama more so than everybody else, it's not that they're the most hated, but it's the arrogance that they display and the superiority complex that they have a lot of times, and the fact that it's just that Bear Bryant invented football and now Nick Saban is teaching everybody how Bear Bryant really wanted it done. It's unreal to me. I don't necessarily dislike Alabama. I just don't like some of the things that go on, and especially when you look at a situation. Had that been an Auburn player, it doesn't matter who it is. It could have been our fourth-string receiver, and if that had happened at an Auburn situation, everybody would have lost their mind. And so with an Alabama thing, it's, there's no credibility to it. There's no clean program in the country. Like, everything gets pushed on the rug when it's an Alabama situation, and it is amusing sometimes to be able to do so.
I like to say, Scott, that Alabama fans can spin a subject in whichever direction they choose to go. I've always said that. Luke gets upset with me on the air when I bring that up, but they are spin meisters, and they do. And don't kid yourself. You don't like Alabama fans. You don't have to go on air right here and act like you do. You don't.
All right. Well, okay. Well, just being okay. I despise them. I'm in a group chat with a couple of my friends. It's 2 Auburn fans, 2 Alabama fans, and I mean it's an all-day affair with the Alabama guys. And it's not so much. I mean, as an Auburn fan, it irritates me. But even it seems to me that I would handle it more like, if you're as an Auburn fan, I can speak well about Auburn without having to downplay Alabama. On the flip side, a lot of times the topic is happening with Alabama and Auburn. Any other school is not necessarily what they're doing, but more so what you're not doing. And so I think if more people focused on what was happening in their own backyard, things like Oklahoma wouldn't happen or such. I mean, it just happened. Karma will happen around. That's why the 1 second situation that happened in the Iron Bowl, I think that's just complete karma for a fan base that had to endure so much negativity the year before, and to have so much positive things that happen, and for it to happen against the arch rival just lets everything go with me. But real quickly before I get off there, I want to get y'all's thoughts on Kevin Sumlin. We had a big conversation today on where he ranked in the echelon of SEC coaches, and I thought he was a little higher than what a lot of my friends thought. I just want to get your thoughts on where he ranks in the SEC.
We'll talk about that. I'll write that down. Need to get back to the phone lines real quick. We're going to go a couple of minutes over here on this segment. Let's keep Kevin Sumlin on the mind. Thanks for your phone call, Scott. John in Millbrook, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, good afternoon. Wanted to weigh in on something that y'all talked about earlier, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope Johnny Manziel is successful, and one of the reasons that I do is because they're fun to watch. It is fun to watch a quarterback that can ad-lib and do some of the things that he's done. And he isn't the only one that's attempted to do that, because Fran Tarkington was a quarterback like that. That Warren Moon was a quarterback like that. We've had quarterbacks before that had the ability to do some of the kinds of things that he has done. Now, you can say, well, that was a long time ago and that kind of thing, but they do make it more enjoyable. One of the reasons that Auburn is fun to watch now is because we have a mobile quarterback that can get back there and run around some. And I find the pro game boring to a great degree, but I love watching somebody like him. And I hope he is able to pull – if he's able to resurrect Cleveland, he is something.
Very good call there, John. We're up against a break. We appreciate it. Love to hear from you again. I'm going to say exactly what John said. I would love to see Johnny Manziel, and I don't care that he acts like a perfect saint out there on the field. I want to see him succeed. Can he in the NFL? There's not many that you can point to in today's game that have been successful for the long term. Only one I can kind of compare him to is Michael Vick. And Michael Vick's never won and never been able to stay healthy for the long term. He's much the same size. Vick's faster, of course. I'd say Johnny Manziel improvises as well as Vick, but nobody else really. Russell Wilson, maybe. I mean, would you point to him and say that he's the same type of player as Johnny Manziel?
I think he's better. He's got a better head on his shoulders. 1-888-9-TIGER-9, toll free, 334-887-3401. Don't go anywhere. More Sports Call to come. Presented by Always Money. Welcome back, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of Sports Call. Andy and Randy here with you for another 30 minutes. Taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. We'll get right back to the phone line.
Bama Dog, over in Opelika, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys, how y'all doing this evening?
Good, Bama Dog. How are you?
All right. Look, man, I'm going to go ahead and put this on the table now. I wish people would stop lumping all Alabama fans together. There's nothing I hate worse than that. You know what I'm saying? That's just like saying all Americans are arrogant or all African Americans are this or all white people are that. Man, you guys out there saying, oh, you hate Alabama fans or they this and that, you're talking like you know every Alabama fan in the nation. Bye.
Thank you, Bama Dog. We appreciate your phone call. No,
I've met most of them.
I have met most of them, and most of them, I've got some of my very best friends in the world are Alabama fans. Bama Dog, don't take it serious. We didn't mean too much by it, but in fun, when it's during football season and we're 1 week out, even my Bama friends and me, we don't talk a whole lot at this time of the year. Am I wrong, Andy? That's what we do. This is our hobby here in this state. It's to rib one another. And that's what we're doing out there. So, again, don't take us so serious.
I'll part with a secret. My mother, my beloved mother, is an Alabama fan.
Mine is, too. How did we manage this?
Well, my father went to Auburn. So
okay.
That's how I got there. But, look, yeah, it's all in fun. Even though we don't like Alabama fans and we despise them, we don't really, despise them that much. So, it's all in fun. Yeah, don't take it too seriously. If Bama Dog, do you have no where you would get an $800 pair of shoes? I mean, do Alabama fans get a mailer on that, or are you involved in that in any way? Just give us a call back and let us know. A lot going on, as we mentioned. Just some stories throughout the country. One interesting story that I thought was interesting was that Kurt Schilling came out and said that he has been battling cancer. And to turn things serious for just a minute, he has been battling cancer, and he came out and said that he thought it was mouth cancer, and he thought that it certainly came from his dipping for 30 years. And we just lost Tony Gwynn a couple of months ago or a month ago, and he the same mouth cancer that led from chewing tobacco. Look, I used to dip, and I hadn't touched it in 16 years, and I'm glad of it because once it gets a hold of you, it is tough to get rid, to stop. So, but this is kind of this is a big deal. You got two Major League Baseball players here suffering from cancer of the mouth, and you still see baseball players today pretty prevalently dipping and chewing tobacco.
I think baseball is a sport. There's so much downtime that you get kind of stuck in your habits. It's a mental game, kind of like golf. I mean, you can go through these streaks in baseball where the ball looks as big as a beach ball, and when you're doing the same routine, you go to the same cage, you hit the same amount of BP pitches, you don't touch the lines on the field. Baseball players have always been that way. So I think that's a part of it, that it's in their head even with that. I saw a story, Chipper Jones has stopped dipping. I wonder how many I don't know that he stopped dipping, but he's using smokeless or he's using tobacco that doesn't harm you. Let's put it that way. I don't know exactly what it is, but he has changed his lifestyle there. So how many baseball players will do this? I think that the more stories that come out, the more that you'll see it change, Andy. I really do.
Absolutely. Well, there's no bigger motivator than fear. And you see, you hear Kurt Schilling describe everything that he's been through and the treatment that it's taken. He says he has no sense of smell. He has no taste buds. The radiation and the chemotherapy that he's had to go through. He said, it's so bad. It's so difficult. He said, I don't even know if I would do it again if I had the opportunity. So, I think once you see it, it kind of hits home. You see guys that you played with. You see guys that are visible out there talking about it, and they've already banned it really from the dugouts. Basically, you don't ever see. You used to see just piles and piles of it in the dugout. You don't see that anymore. You see sunflower seeds, you see chewing gum, you see all these different things. So it all starts back in high school. It all starts back in college and minor leagues. Once you get it out at the beginning, you don't get started on it, then you don't ever have to worry about it.
888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Sports Call AU is where you can find us on Twitter, and we'd love to hear from you there. We had a caller, Scott, earlier ask where do we think Kevin Sumlin fits into the pecking order and the coaches in the SEC. I'll start with you, Andy. What are your thoughts on Kevin Sumlin?
I think the jury is still out. I think he's a really good offensive mind in that Kevin, or what's his name, Leach?
Mike Leach.
Mike Leach at Washington State. I think he's in that family where he can score a lot of points, he can run up a lot of yards, but it's through that air raid type, which I'm not a big fan of. I think he's a good coach, but right now you have to look at it again. Texas A&M is trending downward right now. They won 11 games, then they won 9 games. This year, it looks like maybe they could win as few as 8, maybe even 7 games this year. So he has recruited really well. I think the jury is still out right now. I would place him somewhere in the middle of the pack as far as the SEC is concerned.
Yeah, we'll see this year with their schedule. They've got to go on the road at Mississippi State on October the 4th, on the road at Alabama October 18th, and then to us at Auburn on November the 8th. 3 very, very tough road games. If he ends up with 7 or 8 wins this year, then I think that where you have him in the pecking order, he's not seen as a top 3 coach currently. And maybe he will be after this year. If he pulls off 9 or 10 wins, Johnny Manziel less, then I think more people will point to Kevin Sumlin and say that he's deserved what he's got. We've got a couple of phone calls holding. Butch in Montgomery, you're on Sports Call.
Bama Puppy was correct. They're not. Alabama fans aren't all the same. Come on, they've got their Updikes, they've got their T-Bammers, they've got their dive bombers at the Sugar Bowl. I mean, come on.
You're exactly right, Butch. Unfortunately, a lot of us feel that way. I mean, us Auburn fans, especially 1 week out from college football, the ribbing is going to begin. Andy,
there's no doubt about it. You know, again. I know several. I know at least 2 or 3 Alabama fans that are level-headed and realistic and you know smart about football. But unfortunately, I know about 10 or 20 that are not. So you know, it's not that. Again, you don't want to love them all. There's a few exceptions out there, but for the most part, you know, I think you're right. There is some distinction between.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Michael in Auburn, you're on Sports Call.
Hey guys, I was just going to comment real quick about the chewing tobacco in sports, and they had to fight it for so long with the Players Association, and they just now this year come off, brought it to the bargaining table that they'll put a stop to it. But the Players Association wouldn't address it or wouldn't allow them to address it because they it was kind of their right, so to speak. But I remember, catching, some of the TBS games with Jeff Blauser back in the day for the Braves and him just chain smoking in the dugout. It's something, you don't see very much anymore. But I had a question for you guys with Braxton Miller being out at Ohio State. Kind of get your pick on the 4. And if you could briefly maybe go over some of the games outside of the SEC that you're kind of looking to maybe be, some of those key, like Iron Bowl type games that are going to be the swing factors for those 4 teams to make the playoffs.
Michael, we appreciate the phone call. We'll bring up both of those topics. I'll start right there with the 4. Andy, the AP Top 25 out yesterday. Florida State, number 1, Alabama 2, Oregon 3, Oklahoma 4, Ohio State 5 with Braxton Miller out. Most of us would push them away. The odds makers do. They started off at a 12-1 odds to win the national championship. Braxton Miller goes out. They moved to a 50-1 odd yesterday in Vegas. Auburn comes in at number 6. I'll kick it over to you. Your thoughts on the 4 teams that you see making the playoffs?
Well, I think the SEC champion is a deadlock, and I think the Pac-12 champion is a deadlock. Now, who are those going to be? I'm picking Auburn to win the SEC. The Pac-12, as far as games looking forward to, I always look forward to the Stanford-Oregon game. That is always one of the highlights of the season for me, as far as out-of-conference games are concerned. There's going to be a lot of games, good games there in the Pac-12. You talk about USC and UCLA, both resurgent right now, doing big things there in the Pac-12. So I look for all those kind of matchups: Stanford, USC, Stanford, UCLA, Oregon, Stanford, Oregon, UCLA, all those kind of things. As far as the four are concerned, I would say right now Auburn, Oregon, and I'm going to pick Wisconsin coming out of the Big Ten. I think their schedule is really – I think they avoid Ohio State, Michigan, and Nebraska, if I'm not mistaken. I think they do have to play Penn State, or maybe they play Nebraska. They don't have to play Penn State, one or the other. I think Wisconsin has a chance to come out of the pack, out of the Big Ten, and be that third team. That fourth team, I think it has to be Florida State.
I think that when you look at a game, though, to point to, and I'm glad you brought up Wisconsin because that is the game that I would point to out of conference that would mean the most. Wisconsin takes on LSU in Houston August the 30th. It's coming up quick. Wisconsin needs that victory because their strength of schedule is not what many of their rivals up there in that part of the world have. And
it's a great time to catch LSU.
It is.
Young. You're talking about maybe a freshman quarterback, a freshman wide receiver, a freshman tailback. You don't want to face them at the end of the season.
888-9 Tiger 9 334-887-3401. UCLA number 7, Michigan State 8, South Carolina 9, Baylor 10. That Wisconsin team that we brought up, they come in at number 14. Outside of the top 10, I know you've seen these AP polls. Outside of the top 10, name a team that you think's a sleeper that could move up quickly based off of their talent level and maybe their schedule, Andy.
Well, Baylor, is a team. What is Baylor?
They're 10th.
10th, okay.
That's close enough, though.
Baylor's a team you have to figure with Kyle Petty coming back, they're going to just rack up, ungodly offensive numbers this year. The Big 12, Big 12 isn't exactly what it was. Oklahoma State looking to be down this year a little bit. If you can get past Oklahoma, which they did last year, I believe, Baylor has a great chance to be right there in the top 5 again this year. And in playing 9 games there in the Big 12, they could be certainly fighting their way. How about an undefeated Baylor team and an undefeated Wisconsin team trying to pick between the two? Who makes it in? That's the kind of maybe a decision that this committee is going to have to deal with.
When I look down, I'm surprised to see Kansas State at number 20. But they do come into the initial AP Top 25 at number 20. That's a huge game, week 3 for Auburn.
Too high or too low?
Too high for me. I mean, Kansas State had a nice run a few years back, and Bill Snyder back. I get all of that, but maybe I'm a little too optimistic about Auburn's chances over there. I know we're going to know a lot more about ourselves when I look at Kansas State coming in at number 20. But if I look at a team that I point to that's out of the top 10 currently, it's Georgia. Georgia's number 12 in the AP Top 25. I think with their running back, I think with the great running backs that they've got coming in as freshmen, if either one of these two can complement Gurley in the backfield, they've already got a great stable in the backfield with Gurley. Marshall will be back also, but if they can get another complement, one of these running backs and their fifth-year senior quarterback can play just up to par, Georgia may scare me. The more I watch the SEC network, let's say, the more that I start thinking highly of Georgia, Andy.
Yeah, they're a scary team, no doubt. You hope maybe, by Auburn is obviously going to catch them late, have to go to Athens. You wonder what they'll look like. Gurley and Marshall didn't make it that far last year. Will they be around when Auburn plays them? You never know what a team is going to look like that far into the season. Don't go anywhere. Sports Call is going to be back right after this, presented by Always Money.
Segment of Sports Call is brought to you by Resource Natural Spring Water. Resource is 100% natural spring water with naturally occurring electrolytes that support a lifestyle of well-being. When you need to refresh, revitalize, and replenish, it's always Resource Natural Spring Water.
Welcome back, everyone, to the final segment of Sports Call on this Wednesday afternoon. Andy Graham and Randy Lee taking you home here. Taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9. Toll free or locally at 334-887-3401. Still time to get that final phone call in. Randy, the Braves have won 5 in a row. Look out, they beat the Oakland A's at home, swept them for 3. They have gone to Pittsburgh and really demolished the Pirates, who have lost 7 in a row now. They're in Pittsburgh, have won the first 2, trying to go for the sweep tonight, and yet they still find themselves 6 games back from the Nationals.
This is the streakiest team, and I guess the Braves over the years, I've gotten used to this, haven't you? I mean, the Braves will go on this long, nice win streak, and then they'll also take on a long losing streak, and we've seen that this year, but it's a good thing that they've turned it around. Evan Gattis back, full strength. He hit a bomb last night. I think that wowed the teammates, the crowd, and everyone, and as long as the pitching can hold up. That was the struggle there in the middle part of that long losing streak. We know we've messed up a couple of times on signing players in the last few years, and filling in that second base hole is still a problem for the Braves. Dan Ugla, is he out of baseball? Is that it?
He was signed with the Giants for a minor league contract, and as far as I know, he's still with them. There was a rumor that he was going to be released, but I think that was shot down. I guess he's still in the minors.
888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. As we were in the middle of the break, I was thinking about a previous caller in the first hour, and I want to bring it back up here in the closing. Bruce Pearl. If you saw Bruce Pearl's Auburn take last night on the SEC Network, if you didn't leave with goosebumps, looked like he's going to cry a couple of different times. I'm serious. This guy is a salesman. He's outstanding. He's exactly what we need. We need somebody to market that program. He talked about Joe Champion reaching 3 NCAA finals appearances in women's basketball and not knowing that, never knowing. He knew all about Pat Summitt, missed Pat Summitt, but never knew that Auburn had that strength in the women's basketball game that we did back in the 80s. Don't worry. If he gets on a nice stretch, he's going to let everybody out there know, and that's been what we've needed, Andy.
Absolutely. August 23rd, that will be Saturday. That is his last day under the show calls. He's already said he'll be in his office 12:01 Sunday morning. Just rare and about to be completely turned loose. The handcuffs will officially come off. And like you've said, we talk about what he has done so far at Auburn, how visible he's been on campus, the things that he has said, the players that he has brought in. He's transformed the roster very quietly. They brought in some really high-quality recruits without him being able to really recruit off campus or really pretty much do anything. But he has been visible. He has been loud. He has represented Auburn in a positive way in everything that he has possibly done, and he has done this all with both hands tied behind his back. So I'm like you. It's just incredible to think about what's coming next. You think about the future of Auburn basketball. Right now, I know somebody asked him about a Midnight Madness at Auburn, and he said, how about let's worry about a little March Madness first, and then we can add the Midnight Madness to it. So Auburn's going to go out and play a very challenging out-of-conference schedule to start the season. It's always challenging playing in conference this year, but I can't believe I'm saying this, but I can't. The basketball season can't get here soon enough.
I know I'm sitting here on the SEC Network again, but Bo Barkley and the Big Hurt, is that tomorrow night?
That'll be Thursday night. We're going to have actually the producer of that show on here on Thursday afternoon, so that'll be interesting.
So tomorrow afternoon we'll have the producer of Bo Barkley and the Big Hurt for the SEC Network, which will air tomorrow night. Us Auburn fans, we're all looking forward to that. I know I am, Andy.
Absolutely. The music's playing. That's going to do it for us on this edition of Sports Call. For Randy Lee, I'm Andy Graham saying so long for now. We'll talk again soon.
Justin is the most adept fellow I've ever seen at looking at his